Hello again, Applied English, and welcome to part 2 of today's lesson. Mr. Hantak is back with a little bit of writing practice for us. So far this week, you guys have actually used the majority of the 5 English skills that we've discussed. Obviously, lots of thinking, and you're doing tons of thinking in all of your classes right now as you get used to the new school year, especially getting used to being online. You've done a lot of listening just by watching my videos and trying to learn about what this class is all about. You've done a little bit of reading with our syllabus and also a little bit of speech with your introduction video. By the way, if you are having trouble getting your introduction video in, today's lesson is one that covers how to message me. So that gives you a chance to learn how to reach out for help if you're still having trouble getting that assignment in. Once again, that introduction video is due by midnight on Friday. So whenever you're watching this, just make sure that it gets in by midnight on Friday. Reach out to me for help if you need me. The one thing that we haven't covered much at all yet, skills-wise, is writing. So this little lesson gives you a chance to practice your writing and me a chance to evaluate your writing and give you some pointers on how you can improve moving forward. So it says, please watch the video and read the directions for messaging your teachers. That's what you've started already. In order to accommodate just for the work that's on your plate already, I have extended the deadline for this assignment till the end of Sunday. So you can get it done as soon as you like, but just in case that you just need some more time to finish up your video before you move on to this writing assignment, I wanted to give you a little bit of cushion for that by setting the deadline for the end of Sunday instead. For the upcoming for next week, just so you know what's coming up on your next lessons, whether it's Monday or Tuesday, we're going to be talking study skills. So just what are those, we're just going to get an overview. So what are those skills that, what are those skills and habits that you need to be successful in high school? And we'll start practicing those next week. We're also going to get into story elements. What makes a story a story? We'll get our first bit of notes for the semester on Monday and / Tuesday as well. Let's get into messaging your teachers. Go back here to day 2. Syllabus walkthrough you guys did. Messaging your teachers. So notice it says, please watch this video. You're watching it right now, and use the attached PowerPoint to send an online message to Mr. Hantak. Specific directions about creating and sending your message are below this video. We'll get there in just a moment, but let's look at this PowerPoint here. Once again, you can click View to see the PowerPoint on your own screen. If you want to download it, click on the name of the PowerPoint itself. I've got mine pulled up in a separate page, or on a separate screen, so I'll lead you through this little PowerPoint slideshow just to give you some guidance on what it's like to message teachers, what we're expecting, and then at the end I'll show you how you can message me with this information. So some basics. First of all, in writing sentences, I want to make sure that our basic grammar is there in order to write clear messages. But we'll also talk about some of the etiquette for online messages in this video too. First of all, let's talk about 2 building blocks for a complete sentence. A sentence is not complete unless it has these first 2 building blocks. In order for a sentence to be complete, it must have 2 important building blocks, and those are a subject and a verb. We are going to learn more in depth about the parts of speech in the month of October, but for now, I do want you to know what subjects and verbs are. The subject of a sentence is who or what that sentence is primarily about. Because of this, grammatically, this means that your subject will always be a noun or a pronoun. Again, we'll cover those parts of speech in greater depth in October. The verb in a sentence is the action the subject takes. You should also note that the forms of to be, so states of being, am, is, are, was, were, be, being, and been, are also verbs. I know that those don't seem like actions. If I said something like, I am a man, well, is am an action? Not really. But as a state of being, it is still a verb, and you should know that. The subject of that sentence would be I, which is a pronoun. This is a little bit easier to tell in practice, so look at the next slide here. By the way, it's not a bad idea to open this up on your own screen. Or you can go back to this at any point by looking at that file, just to get a refresher course. Some examples. So let's say our sentence is, Tommy and his puppy caught the charging rhinoceros. Notice that I've underlined Tommy is our subject noun, and puppy, another subject noun in this sentence, happens to have 2 subjects. Caught is the action they're taking, which is our verb, the charging rhinoceros. Technically, rhinoceros in this subject, or in this sentence, is an object. English is what we would call an SVO language, subject, verb, object. Subjects are the things that do the verbing. Objects are the things that are getting verbed. So in the sentence, I hit the ball, I am doing the hitting, the ball is the thing being hit. Same thing in this sentence. The rhinoceros is the thing being caught. Tommy and his puppy are doing the catching. Notice you can replace that action verb with any action you like. Tommy and his puppy hit the charging rhinoceros. Tommy and his puppy thanked the charging rhinoceros. I don't know, whatever verb you want to put in there works. Just notice that grammatically, all you need is a subject and a verb. Having an object gives more meaning to the sentence as well. Let's look at some pronouns too. Notice this one. You are my favorite student. True story, you are my favorite student. In any case, you is a subject pronoun. Again, more on nouns and pronouns in another month or so here. Are is our verb. It's not an action verb, but still one of those states of being verbs. My favorite student. Just notice what happens if you remove the subjects or verbs from either of these sentences above. The sentence no longer works. So let's say we get rid of our subjects from that first sentence, get rid of Tommy, get rid of puppy. All we have left is caught the charging rhinoceros, and it begs the question, what or who caught the charging rhinoceros? Notice that we need a subject for it to make sense. Same thing in that second sentence. You are my favorite student. If we get rid of you, all it is are my favorite student, which doesn't make any sense. Now we flip it on its head, get rid of the verbs. Tommy and his puppy, the charging rhinoceros. Again, it begs the question, what did Tommy and his puppy do to the charging rhinoceros? Same thing in the second one, you my favorite student. Even though that might sound right in slang, in proper formal English, we do need to include the verb in there. We can't just drop linking verbs and call it good. The third building block, there is one more thing that every sentence needs in order to be complete, and it just simply must make sense on its own. Again, this is a little bit easier to do in practice, but bear with me here. It is possible for a sentence to have a subject and a verb, and yet it doesn't make sense, usually because it begins with a subordinating conjunction. Again, more on these in October when we cover the parts of speech. But again, easier to tell in practice. Check this example. Because I enjoy silly pranks. I've underlined the word because there because it sets it up so that this sentence does not make sense on its own. Notice, if we get rid of because, I enjoy silly pranks is a fine sentence. It has a subject, I. It has a verb, enjoy. It's the word because, a subordinating conjunction, that messes it up. Again, we'll see this more in another month or so here, but be on the lookout for sentences that don't sound complete on their own. There are two more rules for sentence writing that I do want you to be familiar with, because I'm going to be looking for these in your writing, even as soon as today and tomorrow. The first two grammar rules that we want to master this semester also have to do with complete sentences, and they are rather simple. I want to keep it really easy to start here. Just in case you haven't mastered these yet, we're going to start from square one and just keep mastering grammar rules as we go. Number one, always capitalize the first word in a sentence. Notice that I've done that even inside of this sentence. Capital A to start always, capital T in the sentence above, the first two grammar rules. Capitals to start each sentence. Let's master that rule first if you haven't yet. Second rule, always end a sentence with an end mark. Three possible end marks. Periods are the most common ones. You see them, or you see one at the end of this sentence and the one before. Question marks for questions. And then exclamation marks if you want to show greater emotion, like surprise or anger or fear in a sentence. Use exclamation marks sparingly, especially when you're writing something like a formal essay. These rules are a little bit easier to figure out as we practice them in corrections. This is actually a good spot to pause your video and try these sentences on your own. Each sentence has at least one thing wrong with it. I'm going to correct them on my own screen in just a moment here. So pause here, get some practice with it, and then come back to see how I correct these on my own. Alright, welcome back. So I'm going to correct these sentences on my own just as a way for you to check your own work on this. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. This is actually a famous sentence because it is, I think it's called a pangram. It's a sentence that uses every word of the alphabet at least once. Trust me, I counted on this one. They are all there at least once. This one, we can keep it simple. You'll notice that capitalization is right. What this thing is missing is an end mark. Pop a period at the end of this sentence, and you've got a complete sentence here. Second one, Agent Maxwell defused the bomb with enough time to get to Dairy Queen before it closed. Yes, this is a sentence that I came up with just out of my head somewhere. I would say buckle up. I get creative with my example sentences sometimes. Sometimes they're there to make you laugh. Sometimes they're there to surprise you. Sometimes I write them poetically, just to make them extra pretty. Just be aware of that. They do come from my head most of the time. On this one, it's the flip side. Our end mark is there, but our capitalization rules are messed up. Capital A to start the sentence. Actually, in this sentence, agent would be capitalized for two reasons. For one, it's the first word in the sentence, so it's got to get capitalized. But also, agent here is what we would call a proper noun. More on proper nouns in the coming weeks here, but notice that since Maxwell is capitalized, it's a specific agent, we're going to capitalize his title as well. There's another proper noun in this sentence, and it's Dairy Queen. It's a specific place, so both the D and the Q get capitalized. Number 3, 2 errors in this one, and it's both of what we saw above, capitalization and end mark. So do gets capitalized, and do you like waffles? Careful on your end mark here. A period wouldn't quite be correct because do you like waffles is a question. Use a question mark to end a question. Fourth one, I threw a little curveball at you here. Again, there's 2 things wrong here, but let's figure them out one by one. I hope you can spot that end marks is an issue first. This one could be a period or an exclamation point. I'm going to leave an exclamation point here. But as another issue, this word whenever sets it up so that this sentence doesn't make sense on its own. We should probably rework this sentence. I might say something like this. I could get rid of whenever, but then my sentence says it stops raining, which is a little bit odd. To restructure this, I'm just going to change the verb tense, right? Instead of it stops raining, it stopped raining. Now I can capitalize the I. And there we go. Now I have a complete sentence, capitalization, and end mark as well. So we've worked through some of the basics of writing a sentence. I'm hoping that all the sentences that I'm reading from you in these upcoming messages that I'm going to have you send me are looking good. I do want to talk through just a couple of things about sending messages to teachers as well. We would call this messaging etiquette. In the professional world, there is an etiquette. Etiquette is a system of rules or manners that we follow regarding messaging. If you put yourself in my shoes as a teacher, I'm emailing your parents sometimes. I'm emailing other teachers. I'm emailing my principal, so Mr. Kirsch, and also our assistant principal, Mr. Barr, quite a bit. You bet that I do my best to kind of be polite and show my manners when I'm writing formal messages to all these people. I don't want to come off as being uneducated, or I don't want to come off as not caring. I really have to show that I mean business when I write to these people. Messaging your teachers is a great way for you to start practicing professional writing, if you haven't so already in grade school. So obviously, we want to use proper grammar. We want to write in complete sentences, just like you learned. But there's also 2 other things that we'll really want to do in order to keep it formal in messaging. For one, you'll want to use the correct format, so use all the proper parts for writing an email or a formal message. And you'll also want to watch your tone in writing as well. So tone is simply the attitude that pops off of the page when you're reading or writing. You want to make sure that your tone matches the message you want to convey. Let's talk about the parts of an email first. We want to make sure that when you are writing me a message today, or writing your other teachers' messages for practice, or to ask for help, especially while we're virtual, we want to know how to use each part and how to construct a full message. The first part of an email or message is called the subject line. So we see this little example photo I found here. That little 2 bar is where you would type in an email address or someone's name. So you type in Handtack and my name pops up. CC is carbon copy. If you wanted another person to see this email but not necessarily respond, you could pop that in there. So let's say you think I said something really offensive in class, and you want to bring it up with me, but you also want maybe you want Mr. Barr, our assistant principal, to be aware that we're having this conversation. Not that I would intentionally say something offensive in class. You might email me and CC him so that he knows what's going on at the very least and that we're trying to hash things out. But then this last bar is subject. And in the subject bar, this is where you're going to write just a few words about the topic of your message in that line, right? So again, if I said something that hurt your feelings in class, you might say for subject, you might say statement in class, or you might say hurt feelings or something. That way, when I'm checking my email inbox, I see your name and I see hurt feelings, and I think, oh no, what did I do? How do I make this right? Teachers do make mistakes too, by the way, so just keep that in mind. Not that I would intentionally hurt your feelings in class. Note this last little note. Don't write your entire email or message in the subject line. If you type your entire message right there, it comes off as just one gigantic block of text, and it makes it really hard for your teachers or whoever you're sending this email to follow. Just keep that in mind. The next part is your salutations, a fancy word for greeting. Once you're done writing your subject line, so Hershey student here typed in yesterday's meeting as a subject bar, you'll start your email by greeting the person you're messaging. So notice this, the little arrow draws to it. The word dear, or whatever other word you want to use, the person you're messaging, so dear Mr. Hantek, comma, that's going to be your greeting, your salutation. Please note here, you can be flexible with what words you use to start your greeting. It might be hello, Mr. Hantek. It might be good morning, Mr. Hantek. It might be top of the morning, Mr. Hantek, if you want to get creative. It's also pretty wise to briefly introduce yourself right after your greeting. So you might say, dear Mr. Hantek, comma, and then on the next line, my name is, or this is, blah, 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 before you write anything else. The body of your message comes next. So once you're done writing the salutation, like Matt Becker wrote, hey Lindsay, you want to move down to the next line and then simply write your message in complete sentences. So one thing I like about this example I found on Google Images is that this one is a mix of questions and statements. So Matt Becker here started off with a question, as you probably will on yours as well, if you're ever asking for help. Hey, Mr. Hantek, do you know how I can access my gradebook? Question mark. But then notice Matt Becker moves on into statements too. He explains what he's trying to do. I'm trying to learn some basic information about who my readers are, what they're interested in, and then another question. Could you fill out a short questionnaire to help me out? It'll take less than 2 minutes, and I'd really appreciate it. So notice when you're writing a message, a mix of questions and statements to help us understand what you're asking for. Super, super, super helpful. Notice he also included a link. I don't know if you would need to do that much, but just something to think about in the body of an email. Let's say you're having trouble getting into Schoology. You could take a screenshot of your login screen, pop it right here. That gives me a better idea of what you're asking. Last part of a message is the closing. Once you're finished with your message, move down to the next line. Then you include just a friendly sign-off along with your name once again to be formal. Matt here wrote, thanks Lindsay, exclamation point, and then on the next line put his name. Probably should have put his first and last name, but again, Google Images. Once again, you can be flexible with what words you use to start your closing. I recommend finding one that fits your style. I sign off all of my emails with in Christ, comma, and then Mr. Hantek right below. Again, find something that matches your style. Don't make it too informal, so don't be like, I wouldn't say like peace out for every single teacher, but if you have one that you have a good relationship with, you obviously could, and then your name below that. Be creative, be smart with what you use. Use your discernment to figure out how you should close out right there. Could be a thank you, could be an in Christ. Maybe it is a peace out and a less formal message. That's really up to you. But please make sure it's there. One last little note before we look at our assignment for writing messages. When you write a message or email, you do want your tone, your attitude, to match your purpose and audience. I would imagine, for the most part, that you guys are going to be messaging your teachers to ask for help or clarification, right? So think of that. You're asking for help. You're asking for someone's assistance. You want to come off as being appreciative. You want to come off as being polite and respectful, right? So when you're messaging a teacher for help or clarification, you want to keep your tone formal. You want to impress your teachers, right, by using good grammar, avoiding slang, avoiding emojis, those kinds of things. But also keeping it positive. Make it clear that you respect your teachers or administrators, whoever you're emailing or messaging. And keep it appreciative too. You want to express to your readers that you do appreciate their help. A little adage, a little saying says, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. If you're asking for help and you're coming off as being really, really angry, let's say your gradebook doesn't look right, just something feels wrong in there, you could yell and scream at me in email, or you can say, hey, Mr. Hantek, I really don't understand what's going on in my gradebook right now. Could you please help? I know things are crazy right now, but I would love a chance to come speak with you. That more positive approach to asking for help is going to get help from me a lot quicker than yelling and screaming at me, because that's going to make me worry, and then I'm not going to be as I'm not going to be as eager to get right to helping you with that. Just keep that in mind. If you are looking for a way to contact a teacher a little more informally, so let's say you want to talk with one of your teachers, but it's not anything specific, it's not asking for help, you're just looking to chat, maybe you have a spiritual question, or maybe you're just feeling really bored and lonely, stuck at home, and you want someone to talk to, or you want to joke around, share a meme, maybe with a teacher that you have a similar sense of humor as, I would try Microsoft Teams chat. I'll show you that in just a moment here. But keep in mind that it's not like all of your communication with your teachers has to be super formal and email style like that. You do have an avenue for interacting with your teachers a little more informally, especially through Microsoft Teams. Let's get it. So I blabbed on and on there just about how to write, really basically how to write, as well as what to look for when you're messaging teachers. Let's talk about this little assignment here. So it says this. Now that you know the basics of sentence writing and messaging your teachers, I want you to practice by sending me a message. Couple things I'm looking for. I want to know more about you. So far, hopefully, I've seen your introduction video. If you haven't, or if you finished that already, so I know a little bit about you, but I want to know more about my students. So in your message, all I'm asking for you to do is include your full name, as well as a future goal that you have for yourself. I want you to think kind of like we did with Lenny with the 5 English skills. Just what's something that you are hoping to achieve in your future? It could be a career path. So let's say you know you want to be a nurse or a teacher or a lawyer, whatever it might be. You could write about that. It could also be a family goal. Maybe your goal is to be a good father or a great mother in the future. Could be a spiritual goal. Could be an accomplishment that you want to do. Maybe you want to travel to every continent, for instance. It doesn't necessarily have to be a professional goal, but I do want you to list a goal that you hope to achieve in the future. The only goal that's off limits is becoming a professional athlete for 2 reasons. One is that was the example I used for Lenny in our last lesson. But for another, I know some of you might be very athletic, but it's still good to have a plan B in case something goes wrong. There are too many athletes who have their careers cut short due to injury, but then since they didn't build up marketable skills for the future, they find themselves on hard times. So I'm not going to doubt that some of you are very athletic, but let's start thinking plan B as well for other things that you want to achieve in the future. I do also want you to include how some or all of the 5 English skills will help you reach your goal. So let's say your goal is to become a nurse. In your message to me, you might talk about how you want to build your speaking and listening skills so that you can interact with your patients better, for instance. Just an example right there. Doesn't have to be anything too deep or too crazy. This message I will be grading out of 10 points, so just like your introduction video, 5 points for completeness. So did you answer the questions I asked you to answer? Did you include your name? Did you did you sign off by saying like an in Christ or sincerely and then your name? And then 5 points for overall grammar. For that, I am especially looking for capitalization in your complete sentences, and I'm looking that you're using end marks to clearly note where your sentences end as well. In closing, I want to show you 3 options for how you can send your message. I'll read them real quick, but then I'll demonstrate them too. For one, you can message me directly in Schoology. To do this, you'll click the envelope on the upper right-hand side of the page. I realize my webcam might be there, so follow my cursor. You'll see a little envelope. Click that. Click New Message and type in my name, and then from there you can write your message to me. That's going to appear in my Schoology inbox, so as soon as I read yours, I'll grade it in the gradebook. Another option is to log into your school email. Actually 2 and 3, log into your school email or log into Microsoft Teams are in the same exact place. So the route to take on the school webpage is Quick Links and then O365. I will show you both Outlook and Teams as we close this video. So go into Milwaukee Lutheran's website. Under Quick Links, you'll see O365. I'm going to click there. It is going to ask me to log in, which is fine. So your email address should be your first last name at milwaukeelutheran.org. From there, type in your password. It's going to make me multi-factor. It probably won't make you do this. I think this is just for teachers. I have to enter an extra code that it sends to my phone, so no one can hack my email. There it is, 580203. Just this once. Verify. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Office took an extreme amount of time to log up, but we're good now. I just cut out the portion that was taking forever. So this is Office 365. Here's where you have access to your email through Outlook. You do have access to Word, Excel, and PowerPoint online. So as long as you have an internet connection, a Wi-Fi connection that is, you can type documents, create spreadsheets, create PowerPoints for your classes. There's also this wonderful place called Teams, which is an extra way that you can use to contact teachers. I'm going to look at Outlook first. You're going to see all of my emails. So ignore that for a moment. To message your teacher, just click New Message. And then from there, actually, if you type in people's last names, they should appear, right? So let's say you have Mr. Hansen for freshman religion. Type in Hansen, and Ryan Hansen pops up. It does give your teacher's first and last name, so just keep that in mind as you are looking them up. I think it's easiest just to type in last names and find who appears. And then from there, your subject line, once again, the body of your email, and then your closing before you hit send. I will accept emails for this one, so if you want to send me an email instead to get good practice there, fine with that. I'm going to go back to my apps real quick. I'll click off of that. The other way that you can message me is through Teams. Now, Teams is a little bit bigger and a little bit scarier. So we'll do some more works with Teams throughout the semester. I'm just going to use the web app right now. That's fine. And I'm going to go to my chat. Last student I spoke with was Tolu Ogunlia. In any case, if you want to message someone, just simply search them up in the search bar. I'll look at Mr. Hansen again. If you type in last names, they should appear. So there's Ryan Hansen. And then you can type your message this way. Notice this one does not give you a subject line, so I'm not asking for that here, but you still should include a greeting, right? Hello, Mr. Hansen, comma, oops. Enter apparently puts you on to the next line, so I'm going to delete that. Let's try again. Hello, Mr. Hansen. This is Mr. Handtech, period. And then you can continue your message from there and click send. While we are here, Teams is also the spot where if you wanted to talk with me face-to-face, video call does bring up your webcam and my webcam so we can talk face-to-face and see each other. You can also audio call, just if you don't want the video component there. You can talk through, or we can talk through each other's microphones, like it would be having a phone call with one another. I kept you guys rather long on this one. I wanted to make sure you had everything you need in order to write your message. But I'm going to be looking that I'm getting a message from each of you either in Schoology, through my email, or through Teams. All of those are good practice for the sake of this assignment. Just keep in mind, I am grading you based on your completeness, so whether you answer those questions, and also based on your grammar, capitalization, and marks. Thanks for bearing with me this long. I'm going to have some fun reading these messages.